Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. I'm at the legendary Sardi's, and my guest is one of BroadwayWorld's favorite leading men. He has worked with everybody from Stephen Sondheim to Jerry Herman to Monty Python, and now he is back on Broadway, wowing and scaring audiences right across the street at the Shubert Theatre in the hit musical Matilda. Please welcome Christopher Sieber.
Hi.
How are you?
It's great. I'm fantastic. I'm between shows.
I love this.
Yeah,
right across the street.
Right across the street there. Look at that. You can kind of see it back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matilda. I've been there a year and a half now.
We're going to get into that, but first I have to congratulate you for finally landing a role on Law and Order. How does it feel?
It feels great, actually. Yeah, they called me. The story is, I have it in my bio, that it's the last line of my bio is Mr. Sieber has not appeared on Law and Order, because that is everybody has it in their bio. And so I put it on when we were doing Spamalot right across the street, right at the Shubert where we're at now. I just noticed everybody had that in their bio, and so I did it as a joke, because David Hyde Pierce and Hank Azaria, they all had funny bios, and I thought, well, let me just put something in there. And Mr. Sieber has not appeared in Law and Order. Everybody thought it was funny, and then it stayed, and it continued on because I never had done it. And I had auditioned for the show many times, and Warren Light, who's the executive producer, I actually asked him, like, gosh, 5 years ago, I said, are you ever going to hire me? And he just laughed. He says, one of these days. But I actually stopped going. I auditioned for the show like 20 times or something like that. I said, I'm not going to go in anymore. And then they called out of the blue. My agent called and said, hey, they want you to do Law and Order. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And no, they really do. And it's they said, oh, okay, can you do it? Yeah, oh, of course I can do it. Let's do it. And everybody who tells me that says, now you're going to have to change your bio.
Sure.
So we did change the bio.
So what's the final line?
It is the
now?
same line. Mr. Sieber has not appeared on Law and Order, but the not literally has a line through it.
Well, let's talk about next door.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, Matilda.
Matilda.
Scaring.
Crazy.
And wowing.
Great. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm still having fun after a year and a half, and so that's great, because if you're, when you're doing a long run, it can wear thin, and it doesn't over there at all. I'm still having a great time. The kids that I get to work with are awesome. I mean, they're just so great. I mean, they're really like little adults. They're 9 and 10 and 11 years old, but they're your friends. I mean, you have little kid friends.
That's your friends.
But they trust you and you trust them, and it's great. And it's really funny because Agatha Trunchbull gets in kids' faces and scares and screams and yells and throws them around. And they know it's just make-believe. They know that. And, I'll get in their faces and start screaming at them, and they'll have this little secret smile on their face like, come on, Chris, knock it off. Knock it off. You're being a little silly right now. So,
what's it like playing her?
At first it was exhausting because it's so athletic. You have to flip and run and the thing is, the best way I describe it is she's like a cobra. Yeah. And she's so still at times when you don't know what's going to happen, and that's scary. That's the scary part, because she could strike at any time, but she's mostly still. But when she enters a scene, she doesn't just saunter on and say something quippy or no, it's like a bullet every single time. She's like a bull in a china shop. And so that was exhausting, and like vocally exhausting too, because you have to place your voice differently, because you're playing a woman who smokes a carton of cigarettes a week or a day. So the vocal and the physical. It's like when I take a vacation, if I take a week off and I come back, I am like, what was I doing? This show's so hard. This is so hard. And you're breathing like, oh my God. It is hard. So I rarely do miss because of that.
Sure.
Because when I come back, I'm like, I need to breathe, So.
Was the voice the hardest?
At first, everything was hard at first. Yeah. Everything was hard at first, because you have to find it, because they don't want her to be, they don't want you to play her like a woman, and they don't want you to play her like a man. Yeah. So it's really kind of this interesting, where are you? Which is actually good for the character, because what is she? Is she or is he? Yeah. You don't know. I mean, you do, because she's got the breasts and everything, but the character is kind of somewhere in between that, asexual and just big and brawny and horrifying. Yeah. And she's not really to me, she's not funny. She's very serious. And that's the funny thing about it. It's kind of a departure, because I usually play the funny parts. I'm always playing the funny parts. But her, you don't play it for laughs. It's very serious. And I think the humor comes out of, because she's so horrible that people just are like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And that was a hard one. That was a hard thing, adjustment for me to make.
Sure.
Because I'm always like, I can make things funny. And to step away and not make her funny, that was hard.
The first time you saw yourself all done up with the costume and the makeup on, what was your reaction? What do you remember?
The crazy thing is, like, I have the worst posture ever. Because but it wasn't me. They put this fat suit on you that gives her this arched back like this, but then you have these boobs up front. But it gives you like the worst posture ever. But you are like, I'm about this wide in the costume. I mean, you're another foot wide than I am already, and then another 2 feet out here. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you look like a brown linebacker.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
You probably can't see in front of you.
I cannot see in front of me. No. There will be moments where I go like that to see the steps, because the stage is very treacherous over there because of all those little blocks. They're individual, and if you step one way wrong, you can fall. And there's a moment where I walk right down stage, like I'm going to walk off the stage, and I don't even look down at the steps. I just trust that they're there, and it's a really funny bit. But it's just like she's going right towards the edge of the stage and just goes down the stairs, and people laugh at that because it's just like, oh my gosh, she didn't even look. She didn't even look. But that's the only time I don't look.
Yeah.
Because
you've done so many like physically demanding comedic roles. What's the craziest thing that's happened over there on stage with you and Matilda?
Over there, well, we have so many safeties, so things rarely go wrong. But I did break my hand in rehearsals for that. I broke my metacarpal right there doing the vault. Trunchbull jumps over this vault, and you do a flip in the air, and you land like an Olympic gymnast. And I ran in rehearsals. It was the week of my put-in. It was the week I was going into the show, like more than a year and a half ago. And it was that week, and I was one last time at Chelsea Piers at the gymnasium over there. And I ran, did the jump, and smacked my hand so hard into the vault at the gym, it shattered my metacarpal. And it was the week I was going to go in the show. So 6 and 7 weeks later, I was just here with a broken hand. Funny thing is, though, I was doing double duty. I was doing Pippin at the time, and so I was playing Charlemagne over there, and they had just released me because Trevor Mann had all these leave of absence because he was teaching and he was directing and all these other things. And Barry Weissler is a good friend of mine, and he asked me to come to the show. And then I was doing double duty, so I was rehearsing for Matilda and doing Pippin at night. Crazy, busy, exhausted. So I was going to go in the show, so they didn't have anybody to cover, and then I broke my hand. Barry got wind of it right away and says, "Hey, I know you can't do Matilda now. Can you come back to Pippin for another 4 weeks?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "You know I broke my hand, right?" And he says, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. You'll be fine." So I have a broken hand, and it's in this splint. And my hand is literally like that. And you're doing Fosse like like that. Magic to do. And so I had this splint on, and I said, "I can't have this big old splint on." And they're like, no, we'll build you a glove. So they built me this big old mitten, like gauntlet thing with like spikes on it, leather sleeve. And so I did the whole show like it was this horrible war wound that Charlemagne had. It was great.
I love that.
But luckily, because Terrence is left-handed and I'm right-handed. So thank goodness it was my left hand. Because all of his tricks in the show were for a left-handed person. But I learned them as a right-handed person. So I had to throw knives at Charlotte Dembois with one hand, and I had to do this magic trick where it's like, boom. But it ended up because it was like this, but I couldn't hold the things in this hand, so it turned out to be like it was a trick. So it wasn't. They were real knives, but it was an illusion. But then I ended up, instead of going like that, it would go like. I had to throw it like that for some reason. I can't remember why, but it was, and then it became funny. And then Charlotte was just like.
Well, let's get into Pippin.
Okay.
Because you didn't see the show.
No.
You literally.
No.
Barry just called you.
Barry called me out of the blue, like he always does. Yeah. "Darling, do a favor for me." I was like, "Okay, you owe me more now." But he said, "Would you be interested in doing Pippin?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't say anything yet. Come see it, and then let me know." So I'm watching that show, that revival, and I'm looking at everybody in there. Just everybody's exquisite, on top of their game. Plus, it's just the way it's conceived. It's amazing. Diane Paul's direction, everything's just incredible. And I'm like agape watching this amazing show happen. And and Barry's where it's, so what do you think? You want to do it? I said, I get to. You're letting me be in this. This is the gift. Of course, I want to be in this. And the way Barry likes me to go into shows is a very short period of time. So like 5 days later, there I am in Pippin.
Going back to here, is it fun? Is it more fun playing a villain than it is a leading man?
Well, that's an interesting. I always say, and I've learned now, that playing a villain is the loneliest part in a show, always. Like Lord Farquaad in Shrek was a very lonely show because he's kind of a standalone type character, and it's all about him and no one else, and so he pushes everyone aside. That being said, you never really get to talk to your castmates, really. At the beginning of the show, before half hour, that's when we would talk. But I also, that costume was so huge that I always had to face a wall away from people. I had to be, my dresser, Dan Foss, I always had to be on my knees to get into this thing, and then it was in this little cubby hole area but I had to face away because that was the only way the costume would fit in the room. So I had to face a wall and talk to Dan like that, and everybody comes and say, "Hi, hey Christopher, how you doing?" I go, "Who is that?" Like a blind person, who is that? And so then on a quick change, I had to stand, but the only way for Dan to get to the costume was, again, for me to stand facing a wall while he did all the costume stuff. And I was like, "Can I turn around?" He says, no, we're going to clip. And that was lonely. And that's the same thing over here, too. Trunchbull's very lonely part. Yeah. It's just, she's a standalone character, And so it's a lonely. Thank God I have a fabulous dresser, Jess Goldbluck. She's amazing, and we have a similar sense of humor. So we laugh, But for the most part, it's very lonely. Leading man, you're in it. If it's a comic like Leading Man, like Spamalot, we had a blast. We had an absolute blast together, and that was a lot of fun. But it's hard when you're playing the villain. People don't really think about that. It's a very lonely existence.
I never realized that before.
It really is, It took me a while to realize. It's like, wow, this is really. I don't really get to talk to many people.
Then you get booed at the end.
Well, there, thank you, right? And then, and afterwards, you just, it's a very lonely existence.
Well, I want to go back to the beginning. Growing up, where did your love for performing begin? You performed in your living room.
I performed in my living room. Yeah.
How big and elaborate were those shows?
Well, they all lasted probably like 3 to 5 minutes, but they were elaborate.
Yeah.
Because they had a curtain that opened.
Okay.
My parents' living room had this curtain, this picture window that was faced the front yard, and it had it was floor to ceiling curtains, and it would open in part, and then it would drape up. Okay, but my younger brother Mark was my stage manager, and he would drop the record, needle on the record, and it would be Neil Diamond or Dinah Washington or Barry Manilow. Loved Barry Manilow, and he'd drop the record and then run over to the cat, and I would turn around. This is the window right here, and I'd turn around and then start lip syncing Copacabana or something like that. And
who was in the audience?
The lawn.
Oh, they saw it through the window.
No, the lawn. It was my imaginary audience. I grew up in a town of 642 people.
You did? I saw that.
No, there were no audiences. It was just the imagination out there. Cars driving by. I was like, what's that Sieber boy doing in the window now? Yeah. That was what it. The grass and my imagination, and I would put on shows.
That's amazing. All right, I want to get to Forest Lake High School.
Forest Lake Senior High.
Senior High.
Okay.
You had 2 wonderful teachers there.
I did.
Your drama teacher, Jane.
Oh, Jane Gillis.
Jane Gillis,
and Deb Bendix.
Yeah.
And there's one more, Henry Hebert.
Hebert.
3 of those very instrumental in my.
They were really big.
They were very influential because they also treated me like an adult, really, but they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and they took me aside one day, almost all 3 of them at the same time, and I thought I was going into some weird, what did I do? They all pulled me and they said, "Christopher, we've been talking, and we need you to leave the state of Minnesota. You need to get out of here." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What? What?" It's like, "No, there's nothing for you. Nothing here for you. You need to go. You need to go, and we will help you. You need to go." And they helped me, and they got me to the library, looked up schools, got to New York, and at the time, of course, you think, why would I ever leave? But they were completely and totally right, and they come see me all the time,
Well, you have this incredible career. Let's talk about some of the highlights.
Okay.
And just tell me what comes to mind, either a story or a favorite memory.
Okay.
Broadway debut.
Broadway debut. Which one?
Triumph.
Triumph of
the
Love.
first one was on Christmas Carol was your first, right?
Well, yeah, but then it was the official first
Okay.
one that never happened was Paper Moon.
That's right.
Yes, I consider it a Broadway show because I
Okay.
signed the Broadway contract.
Yes.
So, and our names were on the marquee at the Marriott Marquis.
Yes.
So I count that. I count Paper Moon.
Which was great at Paper
Which
Mill.
was so great.
Yeah.
It was just, it just kind of blah, blah, blah.
But never came in.
It never came in.
But Triumph of Love.
Triumph of Love.
That's where I think you and I met in that
Yeah.
rehearsal room.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Memories of that.
There are so many. There's so many.
That was a great musical for you, right? A great time.
Well, I was excited because, it was, Susan Egan and I had done it out of town. We did it in Baltimore, and then we went to Yale with it. Then we got to Broadway, and Susan Egan and I were the only two surviving cast members from the out of town. So made it. So then we had Betty, we had Murray, and we had this amazing cast: Kevin Chamberlain, Roger Bart, Nancy Opal. It's just an incredible group of people. I was so happy to be part of it. So the first day of rehearsal, we're there. And I kept a diary because I wanted to, this is my first big thing. I want to remember all this. So I said, day one, it's like, first day of rehearsal, just signed my equity contract, big day. Everybody here is like a veteran. I'm the only rookie here. Gee, I hope they like me. And then I think it was Paul Libin was going around and and saying hello and la la la. And we're lucky to have Betty Buckley and F. Murray Abraham, Susan Egan, and the rest of you. I was like, there's 7 of us in the cast. You could have learned 4 more names, and the rest. And then when
It's like Gilligan's Island, the first season, and the rest. Jesse.
And the rest?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so when we were going around introducing myself, I said, hello, Paul. My name is Christopher Sieber. I'm Ajis in your show. And he was like, oh, yes, the rest. And I was like, oh, again. Oh, man. So mean.
Gaston in Beauty and the Beast.
That was great. That was fun. Another athletic show. Met my husband Kevin there.
Yeah.
He was the fork and I was Gaston. And
we
fell in love with the fork. Yeah. What can I say? He was a hot fork.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Still is.
And but yeah, we became friends, which was really great. And then we started getting feelings for each other, and we're like, but we both had the rule: don't we don't date where you work, basically. And he had the same rule, and so then he got another job. He got the Full Monty, and I was like, let's do this. Let's do it. Yeah. But we wanted to keep it from the cast, and so we were very secretive about it. And then I guess we weren't so secret about it. They were like, are you guys dating or something? Why do you keep sneaking around? We know.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I thought we were being discreet. And I was like, no, you're being terrible at it. You're being terrible. But I broke my finger doing that show. I broke my pinky.
With the monks?
No. The track in the floor of the stage, there's what they call the dog.
Okay.
I learned this from that accident. There's a dog, and then there's the knife. And the knife goes through the set into the dog that moves the set backwards and forwards across the stage. And so during Gaston, my big number, front center spotlight, I go and push LeFou down. My finger goes in the track, hits the dog, snaps, dangles. I know everybody gets that way. Everybody's like, oh, gross. But dangles over here. And I still have to do, at the big number with the big, heavy metal mugs, where you go clink, 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 clink for about a minute and a half. And I've got a broken finger. It keeps getting smacked with a metal mug over and over and over again. It was not pleasant. I had tears running down my eyes.
Thoroughly Modern Millie.
That was a blast. Short period of time to go into that show. I had 5 days to go into that too. And I had to learn that patter song. And by the way, once you learn a patter song, it never leaves your head. My eyes are fully open to my awful situation, so I'm writing you a letter to demand an explanation when I still have it. Close it, find a small container of the stuff I talk about, just carefully. You never forget it.
Patter songs.
It was fun. And when Mark did it, because Mark took a leave, and I was just finishing Into the Woods, and we closed Sunday, and I started Monday for Millie, and I was in the show, I think Friday or Saturday the next week. It was crazy, and that was so much fun though.
Billy Flynn, Chicago.
Billy Flynn is blast. It's always fun to do. It's always a fun part to do because you have one costume. It's a tuxedo. You look awesome. You sing. You walk stage right. Girls dance around you. You walk stage left. Girls dance around you. You finish the number and walk away. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a really great show, and it's such a fantastic school. It's just the whole thing about it. It's so much fun. I've done it 4 times now, And I love doing that show. I love going back there.
Rapunzel's Prince and the Wolf in Into the Woods.
You want another story? Okay, this is great. All right, so we're right here. So we're right there at the Broadhurst Theater, right there. Vanessa Williams is the third week of previews in New York because we were out of town in Los Angeles, and we came here, and I was Rapunzel's Prince, and Greg Edelman was Cinderella's Prince. And in the show, Rapunzel's Prince is just built in understudy Cinderella's Prince. Into the Woods is my favorite show. So much. Love it. Know every lyric, know every line, everything. I watched rehearsals and watched Greg, and we're on stage most of the time together anyway. So, but I had not had any understudy rehearsal at all. So, but I'm just that way, and I observe, and I'm professional. And so week 3, and we had 2 wolves. We had the brother wolves and the brother princes. So what happened was, after the wolves, Greg hurt his back so bad that he couldn't go on. And I'm like, and Beverly Randolph, God rest her soul, comes to me. She says, "Christopher, you're on." I'm like, "Great." She's like, "You're really calm about this." I was like, "I know it all. I cannot wait to do this. I cannot wait to do this." And I went in and I was like, bam, 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 knocking it out of the ballpark. Cacao, cacao. It was great. It was amazing till the end of Act 1. End of Act 1 is the blood that comes in Cinderella's shoe, and the narrator says, "And the prince noticed there was blood in his shoe," and pours out the blood. Well, it's a blood bag that goes on your back with a pump, and you pump it, and it runs down the hose, and you just squeeze it, and it goes in the shoe, and you dump it out, and the audience goes, "Gross." If I had had rehearsal, they would have told me to squeeze it once, not 25 times. Because when you squeeze it 25 times, it doesn't just spurt, it sprays, and it's sprayed out into the audience. And Paul Gemignani is our conductor, and he's like, "Oh my God." So I'm turning, and it won't stop. It's like I opened up a vein, and it's just like spray. And I'm turning to the cast, because the whole cast is gathered around, the evil stepsisters, Jack and his mom, and everybody else just gathered around. And I'm turning to them in concern. I'm like, I don't know how to stop this, spraying them down. Milky White is now pale pink, And then Laura Benanzi has to come on stage, and she has no idea what has just transpired. And the cast is covered in blood and looks like the cast of Carrie. And then I have to take her, and she's just like, what happened? Yeah. What happened? What happened to Paul? So,
all right, Spamalot. Crazy things there. Let's stay on crazy stories.
That was actually that Black Knight. Most lonely part ever, because you had the Black Knight, he gets his arms and legs cut off, but the whole thing is this gigantic walking magic trick. So you've got all these levers and things inside, fake arms, fake limbs, fake real and fake, and to learn how to do that. But that's a lonely part, because they had this helmet on you that only had like about that much available to see, but foam all around it, so you couldn't hear anybody. So people come up to ask you questions, you go like, you're like a mute. You could deaf mute. You couldn't hear, and you were like this again. Yeah. So again, back in the corner facing a wall, you had to be out of the way. And and then you get out there, and then you get caught in the actual magic trick itself, and you have to wait there for somebody to release you, because you're literally stuck to a wall with a knife in your body, and it's a broadsword like this, so you just have to wait for somebody to come and get you, and it's in the dark, alone, and they can't come and get you for a while because there's a scene that happens in front of you, and you're like, you just sit there. But it was such a blast. I mean, that wasn't even work. Spamalot was not even work. That was just showing up, getting paid to play with your friends.
And working with Mike Nichols.
Oh, that was amazing. What a gift that was. That's an amazing gift. He would say such great things, and he was one of the very few directors who could just tell you in like a sentence of what it needs to be to accomplish what you need to do, and how to get a laugh. And he would say things that were disgusting, but it is the exact essence of what it is that it has to happen. And he said funny things. And one of those rare occasions, we loved him when we knew he was in the house. Sometimes when you're in a show and the director's there, you're like, "Oh God, what did they tell me to do last time?" Mike, when he came, it was always good, and we were like his kids. We couldn't wait to show him what we've done.
In every show, there comes a song like this. It starts off soft and low, and ends up with a kiss. Oh, where is the song that goes like this? this? Where is it? Where?
Shrek.
Shrek. I feel bad for anybody who ever has to do that part, Lord Farquaad, ever again, because I get more emails and Facebook posts and friend requests to ask me, how did you survive this? And I always answer. I get Twitters, I get all this. I always tell them, number one, be careful. But I tell them how we did it. But I always, most of the time, I end up talking to the person who's actually playing the part. And I say, listen, if you ever feel hurt, stop, because that show screwed me up. It was so much fun to do because David Lindsay-Abaire, who wrote the book, and Janine Tesori, I mean, I was with it since it was, like, we had 3 songs and half an act. And they let me go. They let me just keep going. And I started improvising things and just turned out to be in the show. So a lot of those things that ended up in the show were like ideas that I had that we kind of worked on together, and they ended up in the show. So the part was really small when we started, and then it turned into this gigantic thing.
You made it seem like you were like floating on air.
I injured myself so badly.
Really?
Yeah, I had muscles growing in strange ways on my legs because your body's not supposed to walk
Sure.
like that. And I had like muscles growing, and I had distension in my stomach. It was like this. I gained all this weight. I gained like 60 pounds because I couldn't move because my hips were screwed up, and my back, my shoulders. It hurt so much. But it was like sometimes comedy hurts, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes comedy hurts.
Let's hear it for those do-lock dancers. Aren't they terrific? Ha! Ha!
Georges in La Cage.
Yes.
Opposite Harvey Firestein.
Opposite Harvey
Another
Firestein.
show you learned in like what, a week?
Yeah, it was like that, 7 days. Wow. 7 days, yeah. I was going back into Chicago.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from my agent, said they don't want you to see Chicago. Because I hadn't done Chicago in 7 years. So I was going to refamiliarize myself with the show. And I was going to go see, I think, the Sunday matinee. Yeah. And, or Saturday matinee. It was a Saturday matinee. I was going to go see it. And get a phone call. It says they don't want you to see Chicago today. They don't want you to go see La Cage. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I go, and Harvey Firestein is playing Zaza, and Jeffrey Tambor is supposed to be playing George, but he's not there. Chris Hoke, my friend and often understudy, is playing the part. And so I see the show, and of course I go backstage because I know pretty much everybody in the cast. And Harvey and I have been friends for 20 years, so I go to knock, knock, knock. He opens the door, he grabs me, he throws me down, he closes his door, and he turns around, and he says, "Are you gonna do the show with me?" I was like, "What? Are you gonna do the show with me?" I was like, "What, this one?" He says, "Yes, Jeffrey Tambor up and left. He just up and left." Because he had a hip thing, a hip thing. So Jeffrey had to leave because he basically couldn't walk. And so he said, "Please do the show with me." I was like, "Yeah." So 7 days later, I'm in the show. And it's just like, what's happening? So I watched it every night. I rehearsed it every day. I watched it every night. And at times like that, you don't have time to panic. And so you just do it. But Harvey's a friend. And then what happened was he was very helpful because he wrote it. But he's also a friend. So it was just like, you know, we got back to us rather than me just playing a part. It became Harvey and Christopher in these roles.
Then you went back into La Cage on the road, national tour, where you switched to Alban and Zaza.
In the same production, opposite George Hamilton. Yeah, for a year and 3 months, and that was crazy.
And I read, and you told me that was the most difficult and challenging role you've ever taken on, the role of Zaza.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you never stop. It's 3.5 hours nonstop. Yeah. You have to get there before to put on all the stuff. You can't go out carousing with the boys or anybody. You live like a nun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lonely part because you're always on stage, and if you're not on stage, you're changing costume. And you really don't have any time at all. I mean, it's a great, amazing part. I recommend doing it once, but I'll probably never do it again.
Under our frocks, girdles and chocks, proving we are one. We are.
My final question is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given, both personally and professionally, that you live by?
Never let fear stop you. That was be afraid, but never let fear stop you. Take that step. I mean, and the other one that my dad used to say, if you never ask, the answer is always no. And that's so true. Just ask.
Yeah.
Just ask. Because that kind of goes hand in hand without like the fear thing, I think, because people are afraid to ask the A question, or can I have this? Can you help me with this? Can I come in and maybe show you what I can do?
Yeah.
You know, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Let's stop. You know, because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. But then you'll know.
Sure.
And once you ask the question, and then if it's no, then great, moving on. Otherwise, you'll just start beating yourself up and go crazy in your head.
I love it. Great advice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to sit with you for the longest time this way.